to as the shepherd's harvest. And the point is, if we do a good job during lambing time, then we are set up for a successful year, right? So today we're going to talk a lot about what you can do to have that successful year. I work for a nonprofit, a national nonprofit called NCAT, stands for National Center for Appropriate Technology. And I've worked there for over 20 years. I really love my job. I get to work with farmers like you, and I am a farmer like you. Sheep and goats and grazing are mainly what I work with. I have done a women in agriculture project that was super fun, and I'm just loving that I get to talk with people and help troubleshoot what's happening on their farm. I would encourage you to call the ATRA Information Service, and I wonder if you could put in the chat if you've ever been to the ATRA website. I would really like to know that. We have so much materials, especially for sheep and goats, and well, not especially, I shouldn't say that. Sheep, goats, grazing, any aspect of agriculture you can think of, we have materials on there in all different formats: videos, podcasts, webinars, publications, short and long. So please take advantage of that free service. It's paid for with your tax dollars. You can call us at the 800 line and talk to a specialist. You can also email us, and my email is here on the screen, lindac@ncat.org. So I've done that for over 20 years, and my husband and I and our kids have a 50-acre farm near Fayetteville, Arkansas, where we raise Gulf Coast sheep. And for over 20 years, we had alpine and sawn and dairy goats. So that is my recent background. But I grew up on a farm in Missouri. This is the home place in Westphalia, Missouri. And I started raising sheep in that big barn down there. I'd lamb them out in that side barn when I was a child. And I've had sheep ever since. I did a job at the University of Missouri sheep farm when I was in college. And I went to an internship at Du Bois, Idaho, at the United States Sheep Experiment Station, and helped lamb out one season there. I like sheep and goats. I like raising livestock, and I like it to be easy. I don't like to fiddle with them. I want the mother to take care of the babies. I want to see healthy animals that are thriving and doing well without much effort on my part. So today we are going to talk about the things that we do that can make lambing easy and successful. And Dr. O'Mara has a poll for you, and this is a pre-test, okay? I'd just like to know your opinions on this. Go ahead, Dr. O'Mara.
Yeah, the question one. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So for the people just to answer this one, they start answering. Almost done.
Okay, y'all are doing wonderful. 100%. Very good. Yeah, so we don't need a barn necessarily, or baby monitors or heat lamps, but we do need ewes with good body condition. Thank you, Dr. O'Mara. That's perfect. So, gosh, I hope y'all can learn something today. I'm a little worried. Can you, are you sharing results? Everyone on this call knew that the ewes with good body condition is the real key to success with our lambing. Dr. O'Mara?
Do you want for me to check results?
Yeah. You can stop sharing and I'll move on if you like.
Yeah. Yeah, you can move on.
I can't.
You can't.
Not advancing.
Supposedly, I just stopped sharing the results, so you cannot.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing and go back and start again. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Please bear with me. Technology is not my strong suit. And this is not where I was, so there. Okay, thank you. To have a successful lambing season begins much before lambing and kidding begins, with nutrition, with having enough facilities for the weather conditions, with having your supplies together and watching for problems. So, body condition. I think this is maybe very, very important for y'all to realize, because we get into health problems with our ewes and does, and therefore with our lambs and kids, if we don't have this piece right. The doe on the left is much, much, much too fat. She's got a big wad of fat inside of her body that doesn't leave enough space for the babies. That also makes it difficult, not only as they're growing, she cannot eat enough to keep her metabolism healthy, but it's just a recipe for dystocia. She can't deliver those kids very well, and she's going to have big risk for pregnancy toxemia. That's very unhealthy. But unfortunately, there's not much you can do about it if it's almost lambing and kidding time. We need to watch their body condition throughout the year and not let them get that fat. The doe in the center is also not in good condition. She's at risk for pregnancy toxemia and weak babies and poor colostrum. So what we want is to keep our does in a moderate body condition for the best outcomes, and plenty of milk and good health for the does. They can fight off internal parasites more effectively, have a strong delivery, strong, healthy babies. So that's key number one. So we want them in moderate condition before winter, and then we want them to stay there. And it's difficult if your hay isn't good. And a lot of times our hay is not good. So we need to be putting our hands on our sheep, particularly because we can't tell. We need to know when they're just about due and vaccinate, if you're going to, for Clostridium type C and D and tetanus 1 month before birthing. Also, if you happen to be in a selenium deficient area where you're at risk for white muscle disease in your lambs or kids, BOSE, B-O-S-E, that shot should be given a month before kidding or lambing. And that's going to help you have the strongest possible babies. Here's a facility. This belongs to my friend Cindy DeArnellis. I appreciate her letting me use the photo. This is called a jug or a lambing pen. I don't know why they call them jug. I never have understood that. It's just a place to let the ewe and the lambs bond. It is not always necessary, but when it is necessary, it's really nice to have. So I'd encourage you to have a place that you can bring a problem situation in. These are tools that you like to have on hand. Again, this is Cindy's. Let's start at the bottom at the 6 o'clock position. Those green Cheerios looking things are rubber bands called elastrator bands. The blue tool is how you use that to apply for castrating or for docking tails. Very quick, very easy. The hanging scale is useful if you need to know how much your lambs or kids weigh, and she uses it with that denim sling to suspend the kid or lamb and get a weight. Those are scrapey tags and a tagger, and she's got a kit behind the sling and a can of spray paint to mark the ewes and their lambs so that you could find them in the pasture and match them up. That's very handy. And the clipboard, which is super important because you might think you're going to remember later, but you never do. Record who was born, the date, the sex, the mother, all of this stuff, and any necessary notes, because if you've got a problem child, you want to know that when it's time for culling. These are some other tools that Cindy has, starting at the top, a halter for restraining the ewe, a bottle, colostrum. It's really nice if you've got a store of colostrum in the freezer for an emergency. We can easily, in that Ziploc bag, warm it in warm water. You never want to microwave colostrum. And then if it's a really weak kid, you can use the stomach tube, that red tube, to give it colostrum and help it get a good start. Those 3 little pills are uterine boluses. If we ever have to assist, we try not to, but if we have to, this goes in the uterus. We always use lube if we have to assist. Towels are handy for drying off lambs or kids in cold weather. Sometimes you need an antibiotic, you need a veterinarian prescription, and the contraption in the middle is called a U-saver. It's for holding in a prolapse. I've only had to deal with those twice in all my years, and I hope you never do, but having one of those on hand just in case is probably smart. It's very cheap. I would call the U that happened to personally, but anyway. And this is handy. This is Cindy's recommendation, Pipestone's Veterinary Guide to Sheep and Goats. It's really good to have some good references. Here's some others, and I'm sorry, this can take a little while, but you do need to know where to get more information. I can't tell you everything you need in an hour. ATRA, as I said, we had a coworker, and he's fantastic. He's retired now, but his name is Dave Scott. He raises sheep in Montana, and he's done some really nice videos that are not too long, that are available on YouTube, and I've listed them here. I'd encourage you to spend some time, if you're new to this, watching those. He's really good. He's enjoyable to watch. We also have a podcast, All About Health was an episode we did some time ago that I think would be useful as well. In big bold letters, mentor. I can't stress enough how important it is to have a real person that you can reach out to. And we can do that for you, the ATRA specialists that raise sheep and goats. There's lots of us, but it's really handy to have someone who could actually come over to your farm and see your setup. So I'd encourage you to be sure to have a mentor if you're new to this. Speaking of mentor, Cornell University has a manual for mentors called Kidding with Confidence. And that title, you can find this online, the whole manual, and I'm going to have some pictures in here from that. They also have one called Low Input Lambing and Kidding, which I think would be great. I couldn't get that one to download. On Pasture is an online magazine, and I found articles from Jeremiah Markway, who used to be at Lincoln University. He raises sheep and cattle in central Missouri. So you can go to onpasture.com and search for his name, and it would come up with, I found 4 articles that he wrote that are extremely relevant if you're going to be lambing on pasture or considering that. So I would encourage you to check that out. Linda Poole is another coworker of mine from Montana who raises sheep, and she's done an incredible series called She's Raising Sheep and lots of helpful things about lambing. She is a single woman who raises a substantial sheep flock all alone, and she wrote a blog a couple years ago called Top 5 Lambing Hacks. And I have just put the bullet points here, but the blog is worth a read. Number 1 is really see, which just observation, but then second bullet, catch and hold. She had some tricks in there that she learned from her mentor, who was a Basque shepherd, of how to restrain an animal by yourself. If you should have to help a ewe and you're alone, a gambrel and a 55-inch sash. Her blog includes little videos that will show you exactly what she's talking about, how to use that, or a shepherd's crook. So check that out. She believes a portable pen is essential. Bring the pen to the animal, sometimes easier if the animal's got a problem. And this thing called a lambulance, which you see pictured here. Basically, it's a wire cart. She can put her triplets or her quads in that cart and wheel them to the barn. The ewe can see and smell her lambs and follow right along, and that saves her a lot of stress. And her 5th point is to dip, strip, and clip. Dip refers to dip the navels in 7% iodine solution. Strip refers to getting that waxy plug out of the teats to be sure that the lambs can nurse. And clip refers to a clipboard. Just like my friend Cindy, Linda believes that keeping records is key so we can make progress. So that is the link. You could just Google top 5 lambing hacks and bring it up. And I'd encourage you to read that. It's not long. Well, it's exciting when it's time for the birth to happen, and we might see softening in the tail head. We can especially see that in goats, and you can feel it, that those ligaments get soft as the body is preparing. You can see udders filling. My dairy does used to get so full and tight, they were shiny. The teats would be very distended. You knew it's not going to be long. Ewes are more subtle. Usually I see their udders fill, and then I just look at behavior. They'll cut themselves off from the flock. They'll lay down and get up and turn around and lay down and get back up and turn around, paw the ground, things like that. So you might see those kind of indicators, or sometimes you don't. You just come across a doe giving birth, as I did here on this farm tour. And this one is a normal presentation. I'm going to show you pictures as she proceeds. After that, we'll talk a little bit about abnormal presentations, when to intervene, and then about what to do after the lambs arrive. So here's the doe. She's pushing. She has a normal presentation where front legs are out, the head is between, it's tight quarters, but she is going to be able to give birth. And you will notice that she really has to expand quite a lot to pass this kid through. So my first point about not intervening too soon is let's give them time to be fully dilated so that we don't causing problems. So once they get past the shoulders, this thing just swoops on out, and there she is. You can see she turns around and she starts licking it. I love to see that. That's a good mama. Licking it is helping it be clean and dry and stimulating circulation, and it is part of the bonding process. So I love to see that. She doesn't lick very long because the twin is on its way. And from the birth of the first one to the birth of the second one, this time was super quick, like a minute. And you can see the bubble there, and she's just giving a good push, and out comes the second. Now, I happened to be there, and the sack was over the nose. I don't think this was essential, but since I was there, I moved the sack off of the nose and dried the face on her hair, on her flank, so that the nostrils were unobstructed. If it hadn't been breathing, I could have followed that up by tickling it with a little straw in the nostrils. And if that didn't work, I could pick the lamb up and swing it in a circle, which moves the mucus fluids out of the lungs and kind of shocks the lamb into our kid into breathing. That was not necessary because it was breathing, and I just backed out of the way because remember, this is bonding time. We do not want to get in the middle of bonding time. We want to leave the mama alone, and she's going to recover just a little bit, and then she's going to begin licking these babies. So we go to another corner of the barn, and my point here is if you've got a tight lambing season, a whole lot can be happening at one time. It's very important to give them enough space that there's no confusion about whose baby is whose. I came across some of our lambs one day, and I had 7 lambs and 3 mamas all around the hay bale. And I did not know for sure. They didn't seem to know for sure whose baby was whose. That's not a situation that I really, really like. Coming back to this first mama, she stands up. You can see the afterbirth. She's looking at her babies, and she's going to lick and talk. And they begin to know each other by sound, by sight, by smell. Mostly by smell and sound. Well, that's a normal birth. That's textbook. That was super easy. And it's not always that way. These are drawings from that Cornell manual I mentioned called Kidding with Confidence. And it shows in figure 1 the normal presentation as I described, feet out, nose there. You can also get one to deliver in figure 2 with one leg back, but it's harder. As you can imagine, as it gets into the shoulders, it's pretty tight. So if she's not able to deliver on her own, what you do is gently pull the arm that's out. If she isn't too far advanced yet, you can push her back in and get that other leg, but she could deliver if you help her get through those shoulders with one leg back. The one at the bottom left, though, that's a problem. You come across that and you're going to need to assist. If you're a woman, a childbearing, if you're a pregnant woman, don't assist, please, unless you absolutely have to. And then wear gloves and ideally a mask, because there are zoonotic diseases that you can get by inhaling. So, but otherwise you're going to have a lot of lube, and you're going to be as gentle as you can. Push the lamb back in to the uterus, because you've got to get those legs first. And so one at a time, you're going to pull those legs up and get them coming out, and then you can gently put some traction on and help. And I say you're going to help with this one because In this position, she may have been pushing quite a while and she may be getting tired. So again, you push the lamb back in, you get those legs out, and then you bring it out as in figure 1 in a normal presentation. So in the lower corner, you see one, it's a normal presentation except the elbows are locked. And that makes it too tight right through the shoulders and the elbows. In that case, you can really help this doe by pulling one leg and then the other very gently to free up that elbow lock. And you may have to push it back in just a little bit to make that happen, to get yourself enough space. You're aiming for that figure number 1, a normal presentation. Here's a little worse problem with the head back. And you notice here in this manual, it's giving you step by step what to do to clear up this situation. But the drawings help me a lot to just visualize, and I think they will you too. In this case, again, you have to push the way all the way back in and then get that head straight. And then what I've found to be helpful, you can put with gloves on and being gentle, and a little lube is a good idea. Go with one hand, one finger into the rectum and get behind that lamb's skull. And that helps get you a little traction on the head there and keep it in the right position as you're putting some gentle traction on the legs and deliver it. In figure 6, you're going to have to push one of them back. You can only deliver one at a time. But again, when you have a confusing situation like this, if you can kind of visualize what might be going on with this birth, you can assist. Most of the time, you can deliver this lamb. Hind legs first is another normal presentation. So they can deliver that alone. The problem becomes if it's a slow delivery. You remember on that other one I showed you, the sac was over the mouth. Well, in this case, if the umbilical cord breaks while the lamb is still in, the lamb or kid is still inside the uterus with its mouth, with its head, it can smother to death. So if you see this happening, I would watch, but then I would speed it along if you see that that umbilical cord is about to break. So that's the only thing there. The breech presentation though, with the tail first, that one needs assistance. You have to reach in, get a hold of those back legs, straighten them, get them out, and deliver it like the figure 7. But again, remember that they can smother once that umbilical cord breaks. Okay, review time. Can you pull up poll question 3, Dr. Salinas?
Yes, I will. Over there, it's ready.
I see the poll.
And the people are starting.
Mm-hmm.
They are not sleeping. Oh, no.
You know, I think that's reasonable. So front legs and head is the most common presentation, and that's the one I like to see. So I'm going to say that's a good answer. But it's true that both A and B are normal, particularly when you have twins. Often you'll have one of them coming out head first, one of them with back legs first. So I think you're all doing fine, except I'm not sure none of the above what they're thinking. But yes, thank you. All right. Are we in the same situation as before where I'm going to have to back out?
Probably you just inserted these slides, so that's the reason you cannot probably you can do, yeah, you have to do the same probably.
All right.
Yeah.
Everyone be patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
You are very welcome. Let's see. On current slide will save us some time.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there. Okay, that works. All right. So let's say the birth has happened. What do we do next? Well, we're going to think about the mother and the babies and what to look for. Of course, the mother is thirsty. And if it's been a difficult birth, I like to give a bucket of water that has a little bit of molasses in, something like that to like really perk her up. She needs and deserves the best hay we can give her or the best pasture if that's that time. Day one, I'm not going to give her much grain. I just want her to fill up her rumen. She's been crowded with all the kids, our lambs. So I want to give her plenty of good hay and water. And I'm watching to see how she's acting. We're going to check her teats unless she's on pasture and I can see the baby's nursing. And then I'm not going to stress her out. I'm going to leave her alone. Make sure she can get to water. Make sure she has pasture. Make sure she has space to bond with her babies. If it's a day like today, it's like 70 degrees here in Arkansas, and this is not a concern. But often we're having babies born when it is cold, windy, rainy. Remember, be warmed and filled in that order. I did not know this for years and years. Hypothermia will kill. And if they are wet and they're out in terrible conditions, it will not take long for them to get so cold that their mouth is cold and they have no sucking reflex. So they cannot get up and thrive. Their normal rectal temperature should be between 101 and 103. If it's less than 99 degrees, and so you should have a rectal thermometer, warm that baby up before you try to feed it because it can't digest anything anyway, and you're likely to kill it by trying to feed it. As I said, I did not know that until recently. I learned that through a class from Michigan State University Extension. They offer a course on lambing and kidding that's super, super good. So be watching for that if you want more in-depth information. So how do you warm them up? You can do it in warm water. That's what I've done that has been really effective. Get it warm up to a normal temperature and then dry it off really, really good and take it back. If it's got a sucking reflex, then I take it back to the mama. If it doesn't have a sucking reflex, but I've gotten it warm enough, then I may have to tube feed with colostrum. So remember that bag of colostrum that Cindy had waiting in her freezer just for such an occasion. But if you can milk the mama and get its own colostrum for this baby, that's the best, okay? It needs a good quantity of colostrum that first 24 hours. After that, it won't absorb it. It needs those antibodies. It needs the energy. The guideline I found through Michigan State was 15 cc's per pound of body weight. So that's where knowing the weight of the animal is important to get you a good guideline. It needs 10% of its body weight in colostrum in the first 24 hours, but don't stress out about that. If it is up and nursing, I never worry about did it get enough colostrum. I'm watching its behavior. If the mother's letting it nurse, you can go pick it up and just feel the heft of it and see if the belly is kind of filled out. Watch its behavior and you'll be able to know that the baby nursed. So I say that first day is super critical, making sure that it gets colostrum very quickly. And I don't like to have to mess with it. So having them born in good weather is helpful. But if it isn't good weather, then you're going to need to pay more attention to what's happening and make sure that they have appropriate shelter for the conditions. Keep looking at those lambs beyond the newborn age. Here's why. Sometimes the first day goes well and later well, I've had lambs or kids with sharp teeth. And the first day seemed to go okay, and then the mother started kicking it off. And when you examine her, she's got cuts on her teats. That baby needed its teeth filed to get the sharpness off. And that mother needed a little bit of ointment and a little TLC to let those teats heal. In a dairy goat, that was easy enough. For a sheep, it's not. So we're going to keep looking at our lambs past day one, but day one is critical. So here's where the lambing pen comes in. I don't leave them in the lambing pen. I don't put them in the lambing pen if it's a normal birth and they're bonded up well and I'm not concerned. I just don't put them there. But If we've had any issues with a lamb got separated from mama, they might stay 3 days in there just to make sure they're well bonded. If there's a problem with the baby seems hungry, I'll put the mama and babies in a pen to see if I can figure out what's going on. When I was in Idaho, we had what we called the mixing pen, which is we would take 10 ewes or 15 after they graduated from the lambing pen and put them together in a larger pen to get used to that kind of the chaos of multiple lambs all around, figuring out whose babies are whose. Out on pasture, we don't worry about that. Just send them right on out. But this can be give you another day or two for observation before you let them out where they're harder to catch. What problems can you see? Well, mastitis is one in a heavy milking flock. I never see mastitis, but if you have mastitis, one of the first things you see sometimes are the babies not looking right. They're like this baby laying down here with the ears drooping and kind of cuddled up like that. That baby is hungry and it's not strong. So I'm going to say, what's the matter with that mama, or what's the matter with that baby? If they have mastitis, I would call the vet. You will know if they have mastitis by the udder being either hot or cold. You can milk it out. That's one of the treatments for mastitis, is to empty the udder. Sometimes it needs compresses. Definitely probably antibiotics. And I don't keep that one in the flock because next year she may only have one side working, and that's not what we want to make things easy. Uterine prolapse can happen. Like I said, I've very rarely seen it. Inverted eyes, some breeds of sheep have where the lashes want to go into the eyes, makes their eyes watery. So if you see lambs that have a lot of watery or matter down on their cheeks, look at those eyes. That's an easy fix. I don't have to do it because my breed doesn't have it, but it just takes a stitch in the eyelid to take up the extra tissue there. Navel ill is preventable. That's why we dip navels or keep our surroundings very, very clean. Dipping navels with 7% iodine is the prevention for this. Mismothering is a potential problem. But particularly if they're crowded, or particularly I've had this happen when the first lamb was born, crawled through a woven wire fence into the next pasture and didn't figure out how to crawl back. So we're watching during lambing season, we're trying to listen for bawling babies and making sure to reunite them as quickly as we possibly can. I said you should be looking at the lambs. You should also be looking at the ewes. And I like this acronym ABCDE for animal health observations, where A is for appetite because healthy animals eat. B is for behavior. I'm watching if they're separating from the flock or in other ways showing that they're not doing well. C is for coat or cud. They should be chewing their cud if they're not eating, not grazing. D is for demeanor. Just like I showed you that lamb, I think you could all see that it wasn't feeling well. Look at the lamb here on the lower left and how alert it is. And the ewe, how she's standing. You can tell a lot by their posture and energy. So you see the lamb in the background behind that adorable child. And I like to see the vitality in the animals. We know things are going well when they have that kind of energy. We're going to watch our flock for scours, and that could be coccidiosis. If it's in the young animals and it's been stressful in any way, like a lot of rain or dirty conditions, it's probably coccidiosis. That is treated differently than regular internal parasites. And it should be treated because if it's not, the coccidia will damage the intestines, and that animal can be a poor doer all their life. Also, it's contagious. So be watching your animals. Upper left, just February lambing. They don't have pasture yet. And so they need supplement to keep milking for those lambs. They have plenty of space. The bonding is good. Upper right, again, hay quality is important, and we don't have the best quality hay. So we've got to account for that in the supplement that we feed. We want to make sure that all the animals have plenty of access to bunk space or to hay bales, and that they are not restricted in any way. Lower right is a problem, and it's too many animals on a small space with no pasture, but they're trying to get every little bit of green, and they're picking up parasite larvae and not getting nutrition. So we're feeding supplement during this time of year in those PVC pipe troughs. We're keeping them clean because coccidiosis is going to go rampant if we don't. And we're watching their body condition. We're watching for poop. We're praying for the grass to grow fast because this is not a healthy situation, especially this time of year. The periparturient rise, which is when the internal parasites really ramp up around the birth. And while these are heavy nutritional demands because they're trying to make milk, the babies are trying to grow, it's not a good situation. Lower left, though, that I like. When we have winter annuals and plenty of available quality forage, that's taking good care of our sheep, and that makes me really happy. We put a lot of animals on a small space for a very short time. We take them off before it's too short and then let it regrow. If we get any rain, it's going to regrow and we'll get another graze out of it, and we move them someplace else. So
there is a question, what is the meaning of scours?
Scours, I'm sorry, diarrhea.
Mm-hmm.
So loose bowels, diarrhea. Scours, we look at the back end of the sheep, and they should always have pellets. In the springtime on lush pasture like that right there, that ryegrass, they're going to have loose stools, and you're going to see some poopy butts. But somehow it's different from when they're sick. And we're going to look at those other cues, energy, vitality, appetite, to know what we're dealing with. So did that answer the question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So to make lambing and kidding easy, which is what I want, it's fundamental that we have good nutrition and adequate shelter for the weather conditions and mothers with milk. We have our supplies ready. We have space for mothers to separate, a lambing jug, that's just another word for pen, available if needed, a heat lamp available if needed, minimal stress on the mamas, because stress is not good for their health or for their bonding with their babies. And dry weather is very helpful. May I point out to you that everything on this list, except the last one, is under our control as managers. Can't do anything about the weather. Now, mothers with milk and minimal stress on the mamas, these are two things that our management will impact. Let's talk about that a little bit. We strip graze fescue on our farm. Now, not the last couple of years. It's been too dry. We haven't had enough stockpile. But this is a great thing to do. It gives them good nutrition, keeps them away from the parasites. It's very satisfying to just move your fence a few feet each day, and they line up like they're at a trough. They're taking all the green out of the fescue. The brown behind them is where they've been yesterday and the day before. And I really, really like to do this. It's a good way to feed the animals and get great use out of the pasture. But fescue toxicity is real. And some years the fungus is really hot. Toxins do decrease after frost, but when we have lambed in December before, we have had a few times problems where our ewes lambed with no milk. Their udders looked formed, but they could not let down the milk. This happens in horses as well. Dilution is the key to preventing trouble with the toxin. So if you have other feed, if you're feeding a supplement, if you're feeding a different kind of hay, if you have a pasture with a lot of diversity in it, you're getting some protection. But what we recommend is get off the fescue at least a week before lambing. The lambs were normal. They were strong and vigorous. That was not the problem. If this happens to you and you have a ewe lamb with no milk and she's been on fescue, you can use a drug called domperidone, get that from your vet, to get the milk to let down within, 30 minutes or something. If you don't have that drug, it's going to take a few days of being off fescue, and that's too much time for those babies. They need the colostrum that first day. So if you're heavy in fescue like we are, you should keep this in mind. We talked about low stress, and predation is definitely stressful. So can be lambing with livestock guardian dogs, at least in our experience. So at Food Animal Concerns Trust, there is a wonderful series of 5 webinars by Janet Vorwald Donor that goes into predators and predation, livestock guardian dogs, donkeys and llamas, livestock guardian dogs, a deeper dive, and troubleshooting guardian dog behaviors. If you have a pup that hasn't been through a lambing season yet, please go to that and watch and learn how you can monitor your dogs and train them so that if they make a mistake, it's not going to be a deal breaker, right? This dog here, Max, when he was a pup, killed a kid. I don't think he meant to. I think he just didn't know that you can't play with kids like that. You'll kill them. I called my mentor. So important to have a mentor. And she told me what to do. And we put him on leash. We did not leave him with the lambing ewes or the lambing goats, the kidding goats, until we were sure the next year that he was safe to be around them. And he was. It was the first year that he really had a problem. He had to be shown the boundaries. He had to be taken on a leash close to them, but not too close, and taught. You don't get too close to the babies. He became a wonderful dog. I thought we were going to have to shoot him because when I grew up, if there was a problem with the dog, that's the next step. And I'm really relieved that isn't, but do want you to be aware that they can be a huge problem. I came home and had a ewe with bleeding ears because the guardian dog was keeping her away from her lambs. So learn more about that. We have a tip sheet at ATRA. Texas is a wonderful place to get information about livestock guardian dogs. Bill Costanza has a blog you can sign up for. It comes right into your email, and there are videos and research and fact sheets. So Texas A&M, go there. And we did a podcast with Janet Donor for ATRA. Episode 169 was on livestock guardian dogs, and she's just an amazing expert. So I recommend those. Some people keep donkeys for a guardian, and I had a donkey for a time. She also had problems with lambing season. She stood over lambs and didn't let the mother close. I was always worried she might step on them. She never did, but I was concerned about that. So she was a little bit of a problem at lambing time. And then lambing time became a problem for her because I had that lush forage and she foundered. So I don't have a donkey anymore. It's if they can't be on the pasture with the lambs and ewes, I don't see the sense of it. But I did like her until that happened. But again, had to be watchful during lambing season. If you're going to have dogs, you have to know how they are handling lambing. And I just think that in some places you can't raise them without dogs. So just be aware of what can happen and give them the attention that you need to. Internal parasites not only suppress milk production, but they stress the animal. And we really have to be aware of what's going on with our animals and internal parasites. The American Consortium for Small Ruminant Parasite Control, I'm a member of that. And so is Dr. Omero. Wormex, so is Dr. Mohan, come to think of it. Wormex.info is the website. All the information you need about internal parasites is there, and we have a lot of ATRA publications that group screened for us, made sure to review. So learn about that. Periparturient is a technical term meaning around birth. What happens is the parasites that have been inside the animal I think of it as hibernating, the hypobiotic stage, because of the hormonal changes and because of the spring too, make a big rise this time of year and when the animals are giving birth. They have that combined with a really high nutrient demand, what with growing the kids and lambs and then making milk, and that can take a ewe down pretty fast. These 2 ewes, one of them is Gulf Coast, the white-faced one of them is Suffolk. Both of them were handling parasites really well. We need to be selecting for the animals that do handle parasites really well and be giving them enough nutrition that they can continue to handle it well. At this time of year, when the periparturient rise is happening, extra protein in the diet is really, really helpful for making milk and for fighting off the parasites. But making sure that they have plenty of the best quality forage you can give them is important. In the upper right, you see a Boer goat with bottle jaw, which is a sure sign of trouble. That one definitely must be dewormed. We don't want to deworm the healthy ones, like that Gulf Coast ewe and that Suffolk. They don't need to be dewormed, and we shouldn't. But if we have some that are starting to lag behind, starting to decline, their body condition is getting less, maybe they have diarrhea, then we need to check them out and probably deworm them. Consider that. Bottle jaw is a really critical time and an emergency. Okay. So bottle jaw happens because the barber pole worm is a blood sucking parasite, causing anemia and causing this. I don't remember the technical word for what's happening there with the edema, the fluid collecting under the body. So what I'm showing in the lower right is the FAMACHA technique for assessing anemia. Super quick, very easy to do. Simply, you're using a technique to look at the mucous membranes of the eye and matching it to the color card, and that is telling you whether the animal has barber pole worm or does not. And if it has barber pole worm in point FAMACHA 1 is a very healthy red. FAMACHA 2 is getting a little paler, but it's still fine. FAMACHA 3, 4, and 5, we're going to deworm. And we're more likely to see that with mothers sucking, with mothers nursing twins, particularly yearlings nursing twins. They are really have a huge demand on them. So we're going to keep checking them and treat them if they need to be treated. The animal down at the bottom is showing, she's my poster child for internal parasite problems. That animal probably just needs to be euthanized. I say this because I know it's been treated multiple times with multiple drugs and she's still not well. It's possible that this animal also has yonis or something else going on, but you can see so many indicators of poor health and she is contaminating the pasture. That's the real problem with the periparturient rise. If they're out on pasture, they're seeding it with worm eggs that are going to bother your animals the rest of the grazing season. So we need to think about if we are lambing on a certain pasture, letting that be off limits for a while, for a good long rest during our grazing season to let some of those parasites die off. Graze it with cattle, maybe after we get the lambs off to clean the pasture and give ourselves a better chance at health. I love to see the babies this time of year. I love to see them full and content and lively, and it's very, very satisfying. And I hope that you have that experience as well. Keep records and act accordingly. Let's don't do the poll question number 2 yet. Okay. I'd
Okay.
like to see you have lambing and kidding be easy next year as well. So call any of the mamas that gave you grief this year. Remember the clipboard that we showed in the supplies? If you had a mother that was not a good mother or didn't have enough milk, get her off your farm, send her to the sale barn. Then next year's going to go better for you. And it's important to think about when you should lamb. You know, we talked about the risk of hypothermia, and really where I live and where you live, it's hard to pick. In the springtime, our temperature swings so much. It could be 70 one day and 20 the next, and but there are some times of the year that are more favorable weather-wise. So let's think about when is the best time for you to lamb or kid next year, considering the weather, the forage that's available, the internal parasite situation, the markets, what do your buyers want? How big an animal and when? The shelter that you have available, whether it's natural or a barn, and temperament. And here I'm talking about your temperament. If you tend to be a helicopter parent that wants to see what's going on all the time, then maybe pasture lambing wouldn't be your favorite thing. If you tend to want it to be easy and you're confident in your animal's ability to handle this themselves, then maybe pasture lambing would work really well for you. All right, now your last poll.
Do you want the poll now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
because I'm basically through.
Okay, let me go to the poll. Okay.
Hey, thank you all for your great participation in the polls. Let's talk about this one
Yeah,
when it's through, when he's sharing it.
yeah, almost done. We have 37 people today.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you for all the people coming. Yeah,
All right. So checking the flock every 2 hours. I mean, if you're home and you enjoy that, I think go for it. But at night, I have not found that to be a good use of time. And I just think being too anxious about your animals is hard on you, especially if it's a long season. It's going to take a toll on your health if you try to do this. It's not very practical and not very necessary, usually. Providing good nutrition to the mamas, though, that is, because they will be strong and better able to handle their work, if you will. And that's something that you control. Putting all the sheep in the barn actually can cause more trouble because it will become a dirty environment, and a dirty environment is not a healthy one. Also, if a barn is closed up, that's putting them at risk for pneumonia and poor ventilation. It's just not a good idea. And also mismothering happens more when they're crowded, like in a barn situation, than it does if they're allowed to scatter. Be sure to attend all the births. Again, not practical, but I failed to tell you, if you have watched one that is in labor and an hour has gone by and you don't see progress, I think you should check on that one and see if it's a bad presentation or what is going on. Because usually within an hour of starting really for real labor, they have delivered a lamb. So while I don't think you need to attend all the births, I do think sometimes you probably do need to. I haven't pulled a lamb in a long, long time because the Gulf Coast sheep tend to have small lambs, easy deliveries, strong lambs. But if you are raising some animal that is a more high maintenance, you can save lives by paying attention to what's going on and straightening out those presentations and making sure that the animals get off to a good start. So with that, I am through, ready for questions. If there are any, are there?
there was a comment about let me read it. Dr. Provenza tested bird food trefoil as the antidote to fescue end of feed for intake of lambs. So have you heard about that?
I know that tannins have been shown to be useful. I did not know of that particular study, and that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And I
I
think,
do think diversity is always helpful.
mm-hmm.
So, I'm glad some of you have been to the Atrocide. I hope everyone will go.
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Mohan, you put that in PDF in the chat. Good.
That's a compilation of all the studies done so far regarding 12-FSK toxicity, and most of this research has been done by Dr. Coffey.
Oh, and I see Cinda said she had a doe deliver tail first on her own. Nice. Good. I think, most of the time it's really better to let the mother handle everything. When I first had dairy goats, I interfered because they were crying. See, I was used to sheep. Sheep are very stoic. So when I had a doe that was crying, I thought something was badly wrong. Look, They need time for that cervix to fully dilate. If you go into help too soon, you're actually at risk of tearing something and really making it hard, really making it hard on your animals. So yeah, so take the time, but more than an hour is not needed. Okay. You all are doing good in the chat.
Yeah, there are some questions over there. Do you want to go through?
Parasite hibernate in male goats, yes. And they come out of hibernation in the spring. That's called the spring rise. I don't think it's as bad for them as it is for the females because they're not under that nutritional stress. Okay, Mohan, thank you. Dr. Mohan, thank you for all the tall fescue stuff. Okay. Great. Is it safe to treat for parasites when ewes are nursing? Yes. Again, we don't want to treat everyone out of the lambing pen, but some ewes are going to need extra support at lambing time. So also make sure when you're treating that you're treating effectively. It can be helpful to fast them for 12 hours before you give the dewormer. You should absolutely know what your animal weighs so that you don't underdose. And a copper bolus, copper oxide wire particle bolus given with the dewormer can increase its effectiveness. So I would do that too if you felt that you needed to deworm. After an hour of labor and no lamb, what should be your first check to see if the birth is breached? Yeah, just to see how the animal is presented. I often close my eyes and you go in very gently with lots and lots of lube and see what you can feel and see if it's front feet that you feel or back feet and see if you can find a nose. It's just be gentle and careful, but if an hour and no lamb, then there's something not right. In late gestation, how much grain? 70-pound goat that's in good condition, eating good quality hay and some alfalfa. It's only 70 pounds and it's pregnant.
What breed is?
Okay, Sherry Nolden, thank you. Good answer. Yeah, traumatic dose. Uterine bolus, Catherine, it's an antibiotic. If you have to, I'll call it invade into the animal, there is very likely, even though you're trying to be careful and clean and use a lot of lube, very likely you may have introduced infection, which would be terrible. So this is going to be a vet prescription, but it might be a sulfa bolus or some other antibiotic. Okay. All right. Are there any more questions? I think I saw everything in the chat. Okay. This is you're welcome, Teresa. I hope that was helpful. I don't know, unless I know where you're coming from, I don't know what to put in a presentation like this. So I hope it was helpful, but if it wasn't, please ask a specific question to help me out, okay? First dose due on March 24th. Can you treat for barbapole now and the whole herd? I would not treat the whole herd. Look at their body condition, Lisa, and their appetite. I wouldn't treat now unless they needed to. So you could do fecals and check for matcha to help you decide. They're more likely to need deworming after the kid. So, okay. I have not answered Cinda's question yet. In late gestation, how much grain?
That will be depending very much because I think she said that has a good hay.
Yeah, and also some
al-
alfalfa.
alfalfa. So the only thing that needs to be concerned about late gestation is to be recovering the body condition for the time of skidding and lambing. But if the body condition is good, probably doesn't have to supplement any grain in the late gestation.
It
But
depends, it depends a little bit too, what kind of goat is it? Is it
yeah,
a,
yeah,
is it a dairy goat that you're needing to get it like ready for lactation and you're needing to gradually build up some grain?
yeah.
Uh,
But
I would,
will be depending very much about the body condition, the weight of the animal.
mhm.
Yeah, but some people they think because it's late lactation they don't have to give any grain, but that is not true. That is will because they are not producing too much milk, but that will be depending very much of the body condition and the weight of the animal. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so I would refer this question to Dr. Ken Coffey.
Yeah, sure.
And he has used, and I see the answer about the ration balancer software. Yes, Sherry, that's where I would go to. Um, Langston University has a website and a balancer, but that one's more difficult to use, I think. So we could share that if you
Can I,
would
can
capture
I
that
say,
question.
can
Yes,
I say
Dr.
that on that answer? So, any goat that are twins and like a 70-pound weight, it depends upon how much total digestible nutrient or crude protein that you are feeding. So there's a requirement. I could not post it on the chat box, but there is a, as long as you have like 1.4 of total digestible nutrient, 1.5 and crude protein of 2.3, as long as you can meet this requirement with like high quality hay or maybe high quality forage, and if that nutritional requirement as long as with a crude protein, sorry, calcium and phosphorus requirement, as long as this requirement is made, you should be good. But they usually feed like a half pound to 1 pound at maximum grain per day if you are feeding grain.
Thank you so much. That's what she was asking, was some specific amount.
I
Yeah.
mean, everything, all these things are in National Research Council 2007 book. They have listed all the requirements. It's too much detail. I mean, I can list that book in this chat box if you want to see detail on that one, if that will be helpful. That's all we have for that information. I don't know if that will, I can write the book if you want to go in detail.
You know, I can't type and listen at the same time. Let me see.
That book has listed all the nutritional requirement, age wise, weight wise, breeding stage, everything.
Mhm.
And then
Oh, I can't believe I forgot to say this for you all with dairy goats. Langston University has wonderful manuals for meat goats and for dairy goats on their website for free. They also have some really great books that you can buy, very colorful, very easy to use, that you can order from their website. I highly recommend those. They're very helpful. They're very practical. So
All
Langston
right.
University.
I think we are on time, just to respect our times. Yeah. So thank you so much, Ms. Linda. So all your experience and all the things that you share are so good. So uh, I think the people is very happy to have you and thank you again for being with us. And next week, what talk are we going to have, Dr. Mohan?
Next week we'll have a speaker from Texas A&M that's regarding with guardian dog.
Okay.
And
Is it Bill Costanza? Costanzo?
Yeah, he is.
let me see the name. I'm so much bad in remembering all the names. So he's Bill. You are right, Bill Costanzo. Is that what you? Okay, yeah, he is.
Yes, he's the one that I was saying you all should sign up for his blog and
Yeah.
look at that website for all of the information about livestock guardian dogs. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So hooray,
he-
I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, he will be sharing with us all that experience that they have over there in Texas and probably worldwide and about gardens for small ruminants. So next Monday, 4 o'clock, I will be sending some more information. So Ms. Linda, thank you so much, and we appreciate very much and keep in touch with you. Have a wonderful
sir.
day and everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.